Thank you specifically right this moment to James. That
They
music
call you
is
back,
so
Lisa.
important for us to just get into this wonderful creative space that we've all come together. I am Dorinda Adams, and I am an AARP Maryland volunteer with a focus specifically on family caregiving. I am also a longstanding partner with the Maryland Commission on Caregiving, who is the sponsor of this event today. And it is such an amazing and wonderful privilege for me to have the opportunity to be the guest MC today and welcome everyone here celebrating our National Family Caregiver Month. Um, I just know so many of us connect to family caregiving, whether we've been a family caregiver, have needed a family caregiver, or realize that probably in the future we may need a family caregiver. So, what a great time to be together. And just a very quick shout out to the Maryland Commission on Caregiving before I introduce our amazing presentation. The Maryland Commission on Caregiving is a 19-member body that is appointed by the Governor's Office of Appointments. And those folks represent family caregivers across the lifespan. There is also organizations, both public and private, that represent family caregiver programs within the state of Maryland. And there are many partners. And if you have never heard about the Maryland Commission on Caregiving, I invite you to make sure you visit their website, because they are the voice, the formal voice in Maryland statute that represents the family caregivers across Maryland. So again, a big shout out to the Maryland Commission on Caregiving. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing, and now I've got to pull it up again, because as I was talking, of course, I let my bio piece go. Anyway, a big introduction to Ilyana, I'm going to say it right, Ilyana Kadushin, and her partner, professional partner and personal partner, James Harrell. Ilyana has been an audio narrator, engages her voice to tell stories from authors all around the world. She's a voice coach, and she motivates her clients to find their voice, which is so important, so that they can manage, engage more effectively with their communities and share their stories. As a producer and co-host of the Know, I Know podcast, Ilyana is goes out, I'm sorry, I'm reading this and I'm usually not reading, but I'm trying to read this. She's a music artist and singer, and along with her husband and producer, composer James Harrell, create music that elevates the stories being told through film and other media content. As an executive director of Stories Love Music, Ilyana developed a program to teach caregivers how to use their voices and music for self-care and stress management, and to unearth the voices and stories of those they are caring for. And if you have never experienced one of their events, you are in for an amazing, amazing gift. And you will be wanting to experience it again and again and again. So with further ado, I'm putting myself on mute. Enjoy this amazing time together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorinda. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everybody at the Caregiver Commission, AARP. We've had the pleasure of collaborating with you all previously, and it's lovely to be in this respectful and really big-hearted community.
Down arrow.
Okay. Sorry, we're just getting the visuals. Just to give you a little idea of our time together this morning, I want to tell you the origin story of Stories Love Music for those that have never met us before, which involves some music. So it's story and music and a nice experience for you. Looking at what exactly is creative engagement. How can music be self-care, right? We've heard a lot about this, but what does that really mean? And then how does that translate to becoming a creative tool in some of the greatest challenges in caregiving? And then I'll spend just a brief amount of time on a pilot study and some of the things that we've done in both the professional and family caregiver space, because I think it's really important to learn from each other, to create common threads between professional and family. I've always felt that way. So that's a little bit of how our time will be spent together. Yeah, that's not working. All right. So how does a singer, voiceover artist, and her musician, composer husband, we're living in Brooklyn, New York, how do we find ourselves to become the founders, and myself, the executive director of Stories Love Music, this nonprofit that's educating people on how creative engagement can be used in healthcare and memory care, showing people how creative engagement is this powerful tool for caregivers in a time when the current system for both professional and family members is not necessarily sustainable without this sense of art and compassion and experience. So to answer that question, I have to take you back to 2012 when Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast. We're living in Brooklyn and we're working as musicians and recording artists, and Hurricane Sandy hits and much destruction happens. And senior citizen facilities in a waterfront area called the Rockaways are knocked out. And people are put up in hurricane shelters, and James Harrell and myself, my husband and I, are asked to do a concert in the shelter to bring some joy and levity to an otherwise very dark and bleak time. So there we were, performing our concert, playing one of our songs called The Joy of Life. Now I want to guide you in to listen to this song. Maybe imagine that you're in this hurricane shelter in this big space, a storm has happened. Imagine you're in a place and time in your life where you need to remind yourself about the joy of life. What does that mean to you? So we're going to inhale and we're going to exhale. And as you listen to this song, be generous with yourself. Let yourself meet this song fully.
You flipped the clouds right over, took the angels by their wings, rode them off into the sun. You found the light that held your strength inside, and all the while, you know that you're the only one. It's not by chance that you're with us here today. The universe expanded, giving you the way to say, okay, the joy of life is here with you today. Okay, okay, the only thing you'll ever need to say, okay.
La da da da, da da da, la da da da, la.
You'll stand your ground while always reaching out, for something more and looking for somewhere to go. Spending your life in search of treasure buried deep within. But what you got's worth more than gold. It's not by chance that you're with us here today. The universe expanded, giving you the way to say, okay, the joy of life is here with you today. Okay, okay, the only thing you'll ever need to say, okay, to say, okay. And if at first you don't, you will, okay. Don't let it get you down, it's still okay. You'll understand it all until okay. You see that love comes back to you again each day. Hey, hey. It's not by chance that you're with us here today. The universe expanded, giving you the way to say, okay, the joy of life is here with you today. Okay, okay, the only thing you'll ever need to say, okay, okay, the joy of life is here with us today. Oh, okay, okay, the only thing you'll ever need to say, okay, to say, okay, hey. Ba-da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Ba-da-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Inhale and exhale. And as the song ended, that last chord on the guitar rang out. A woman in the audience at the hurricane shelter raised her hand. She was in her 70s, blind, had been living there for a while. She said, "Excuse me, may I speak to everyone here today? Your song, you musicians being here, playing that song, it made me feel seen and heard, that someone cared about what I was going through. We've all been through a lot with this storm, and we do not know what's ahead, but we must remember the joy of life." So inhaling and exhaling, what is the joy of life? If you want to just in the chat, put a word, a couple of words. What is the joy of life to you right now? If you stripped it all down, what is it to you? So we'll just give people another moment longer to just put into the chat what's meaningful, what is joy. And then Teresa, if you want to just read some of the words or...
Right. I love what I see in the chat. I see peace and safety, family and faith, being present and not giving up, living life as best we can, me and my mother together. The joy of life is that I have breath in my body and I'm a child of God. Seeing the sunrise, gratitude and peace, love and belonging, gratitude. Life without him is incomplete. Being alive and healthy, being happy and healthy, family, being thankful.
Wow. And let's just let that land. Just even asking ourselves that question really just kind of brings it down to bare bones, right? Like the people we encountered that day in the shelter. As right then and there was my light bulb moment for me as an artist, but just as a human being, in this big question of, wow, how can music impact people? People who are experiencing things in their health, in their memory. How can it meet that? And it was after that day in that shelter for James and I that we went and we spent about 5 years of field work as musicians in Alzheimer's units and memory units and hospitals and senior facilities, working with not only individuals with memory impairment and Alzheimer's, but also their family caregivers and their professionals. We were with everyone, seeing how music affected and landed on them, seeing how creative engagement, we're going to talk about what that really means, was humanizing a situation that could be very dehumanizing, right? That is a key point here. We took all of that experience, and Stories Love Music, which is the nonprofit, created this program called The Joy of Creative Engagement for Caregivers. And what you see on the screen became our mission. And it was deeply connected to this idea of music, how it could improve care and support. What were the elements of that? Why was enjoyment so important? How could it meet that agitation and anxiety? What was that connection between music, storytelling, and emotional health? And really having caregivers look at themselves and realizing that, yeah, while they're managing reactive emotions and behaviors of others, they have their own reactive emotions and behaviors of themselves. In order to do this, in order to teach caregivers how to use music for stress management and as a tool for challenging moments, we had to look really closely at this word that we were going to start using a lot, or these two words, creative engagement, because this was the foundation of everything we were teaching. So I'm going to ask you for more of your input, of your personal input. How would we define creative engagement? Okay, well, we take a moment and first we look at how do we define creativity? You could start with, well, what do you do creatively for fun, right? This is not the to-do list. This is not about productivity. This is something else. So you could take a moment, think about it first, breathe into that question, reflect on how you define creativity. What do you do creatively? And you could put that into the chat. And creativity means a lot of different things to people. So you can be unique.
We've got some painters, just so you know.
Yeah,
Which,
anytime there's some stuff in the chat to read, feel
yeah,
free to
I
start.
will. Yeah. I was actually muted and was trying, I thought I was speaking, just so you know, the last time. It's good. Cooking, going for walks, the painting, there is praise the Lord, meditate. I used to work out. Coloring. Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorites. That's for watching TV, listening to music. Theater attendance, particularly musicals with my daughter. Writing.
Yeah, there's no wrong answers here.
Yeah, there isn't. Gardening. Creativity is invention tuned for some of all of our senses, emotions, and intellect. Shop for the best sale possible. I'm sure many can relate to that.
That's a creative act.
Yeah. Reading, watching period dramas, reading the Bible.
Mm. Okay, good. Well, you can keep that flow of thought going. But this is a marriage. Creative engagement, those two things are in a marriage. So we have to define who the other partner in this is. Engagement. What is engagement? Okay, we have to ask ourselves, what does it feel like when you are engaged in something creative? There are qualities to this. This is really important for our moving forward to understand what it is we're looking for from ourselves and others. What are we really looking for and valuing? So how would you define engagement? What does it feel like in your body, your mind, and your spirit when you are engaged in something?
Deep conversation has been listed. Collaboration, connecting. It feels like giving of myself to express what's inside, presence, seen, heard, loved, connected, belonging, in unity. To be inclusive with my senses, in tune. Content, full, feel seen and heard, freedom to express without judgment, giving and receiving.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the engagement is the special ingredient,
Mm-hmm.
right? Creativity is fantastic. But when you merge it, when you marry, so now if you go back and look at the chat or you recall what Dorinda listed for creativity, but then you marry it with what was listed for engagement, this pairing is nice because when you do this with somebody else, when there is creative engagement with self and others, that connection, that losing track of time together, that's something I'll often hear when I ask caregivers, what does it feel like when you're engaged in something creative? And they say, I lose track of time. Things become timeless. Think about how that's pretty radical for caregivers and people because you become very aware of time in a very stressful way. So when you allow yourself to both be immersed, that humanizes it naturally because you're creating meaning and letting go of the stressful frame of time.
A couple more. A creative engagement is not always relaxing or soothing.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is refreshing and fulfilling, transparency, calmness and relaxation, peace, in tune with others' needs, nourishing, calm, fulfilled.
And I just want to speak to that person. Yeah, kind of in the same way there's no wrong definition for creativity, engagement is not solely for soothing and peace. It can be. It can also be for energizing, right? It can lift out of a low, depressed place, maybe an uninspired place. I need fresh ideas. I need to look at this with fresh eyes. So I just want you to take in that definition of creative engagement and keep it in mind as we move forward. When we teach caregivers how to use music as self-care and stress management, we start with the self-care before we get to the care tools, because if let's say we're building a home together, the foundation of the home is your health, your ability to stay healthy and well in your work and in your care. So we guide caregivers through different exercises in our program of music and self-care, whether they're music meditations, right? The Joy of Life was our first music meditation. We're going to do a few more together. We teach them how to make playlists that are really connected to their deepest origins and relationships with music so they can do the most for you. They can serve you the best. So let's do another music meditation. Try, if you will, to take off that caregiver hat right now. Move aside your papers and your phones and anything that's distracting you. And try to come into this second music meditation even with more willingness, focusing on your inhale and your exhale. And all you have to do in these music meditations is allow the song in and notice where it takes you emotionally, in your imagination, in your body, and just allow it. Notice and allow. What would you do if you had room to breathe?
Tell it to the mountain, Ilyana. You know the struggle is real and the conflict is present, but don't let it get you down, 'cause life's too short to resent it. We all need a little love and a little more room to breathe. Oh yeah. Sometimes things can get so crazy, but we don't understand. But we all just stick together, lend a helping hand. We all need a little love and a little more room to breathe. A little more room to breathe.
Inhale. Exhale. Just stay with yourself for a moment. Notice where you went, right? That was shorter than the Joy of Life, but still it was this important question. What would you do if you had room to breathe? What are you noticing about yourself in these musical moments? Are you allowing whatever is going on emotionally to happen? Are you stopping it? Are you letting your imagination wander? Are you staying kind of connected to what you have to do after? How's your body feeling? Are you doing deep breaths or shallow breaths? Just notice, don't judge. Just notice. And as you breathe, what would you do if you had room to breathe? What would you do in those moments? What do you need? As the answers come, don't edit them. Just allow them. And if you're willing, just drop a word or two into the chat as when we share with each other. Our willingness to share gives each other permission. What would you do if you had room to breathe?
So the first one is rest. I think I would heal from past trauma. Rest again. Rest and rejuvenate. Travel. Grow. Do more inhale exercise. Inhale. That's good. Find peace and let all the chaos disappear. Go somewhere I've never been. De-stress. Self-care and prepare healthy meals. Embrace silence. Get a dog. Free my mind.
These are wonderful. I do notice with people, caregivers, but just people in general, we really pay attention to the negative voice, to the critical voice. But this voice that you're sharing in the chat about what brings you joy, of what creativity and engagement is, of what you would do if you had room to breathe, this is the voice inside of ourselves to pay attention to. The other stuff is a lot of tape loops, a lot of static, a lot of distraction or coping. We all do it to cope. Only when we have created this deep valuing, or maybe for some of you, revaluing and remembering of our relationship with self through music, can we be able to see this as a tool in caregiving. We must start with self. Because if it just becomes another heavy tool on our back, not likely going to use it when we really need it. But when we practice with self, that's when we really see the value. So remember these words that you said. Remember what brings you joy. Remember what creative engagement means to you. Remember what you said you would do if you had room to breathe. Do it. Give yourself that somehow. Value yourself.
Couple more came
Yes,
in.
please.
Dance uninhibited. Look and think of all of my blessings. Listen to the sounds of nature. Experience the peacefulness.
Yeah. Those are amazing. I want to put all of those up on my wall. So that all of that as an idea feeds into this quote to me, which I first heard when I was living in New York, and I attended a dementia care training program at the Alzheimer's Association New York, now Caring Kind. And my mentor, who became a real mentor and advisor to me as I built Stories Love Music, I saw this quote in one of her talks, and I was like, wow. As Willa Cather said, where there is great love, there are always miracles. Okay, what do I mean by this? Musicians know this. In the playing of music, or I should say artists, in the act of creation, there is this love that can go into creation that can cause these miraculous things to be created. Now, we knew that coming in as musicians, but the most important revelation for me, for us, was when we saw both family caregivers and professional caregivers see this seemingly miraculous reanimation of the person that they were caring for. Now, we've all heard these popular news stories of famous musicians and people with Alzheimer's, and we know that neuroscientists and music therapists have done the research of the impact of music on the brain, but nothing compares to watching the face of a caregiver when they are in the presence of someone with memory impairment who, through this creative engagement in music, is reanimated. Seeing this person behave from a deeper, more connected, more meaningful place in themselves rather than a battle. Because the battle comes from loneliness. This is what we witnessed, from isolation, from feeling that no one cares about what they're going through. And this is for the caregivers as well as the individuals that they're caring for. And that's the interesting thing. The caregivers feel the same way. So this program is really empathy building through art, through music. This wonderful empathy that music as a doorway, not an end, but a doorway. That's when we can say to caregivers, how can you use this same music that you've been feeling in yourself for these greatest challenges of caregiving, whether it's a physical or verbal outburst, some unexpected behavior that builds a lot of anxiety and depression, right? Compound pressure, which is held in the body, by the way. That is why the burnout can happen for all caregivers, professional and family, is that those stresses, those compound pressures, they stay in the body. And music, and the example we gave you of the music meditation and the focusing on breath, letting your imagination go, operating from a different side of yourself, is part of processing and moving that through the body, moving it up and out so that it doesn't stay in the body. So we ask caregivers in our program, what are the greatest challenges that you're facing in your care and your work? And then we talk at length and depth. How can music be used strategically? So the other exercise that we do a lot that's very powerful is about, we've all heard the word playlist. But playlist, like the word wellness and self-care, can be overused and can be empty. It's about what we put in. So this is inspired by a book by Daniel Levitin, wonderful book, The World in 6 Songs. And why do I focus on this? Well, when you look at this list, I just want you to let your eyes float, right? You see those words, friendship, joy, comfort, knowledge, religion, love. I want you to just let your eyes float around. If you had to choose one of these words that you feel like best represents your origin with music, when you began your journey and relationship with music, which one of these would you circle? You can write them all down on a piece of paper, you can look at them, but if you had to circle one, as you know, for me, it's this word, because the beginning of my origin and relationship with music really came through my time in a church, in a temple, with hymns and with spirituals and choirs. That's when that cemented my relationship. Or for others, maybe it was friendship. My friends and I, we would pass songs back and forth. Hey, did you hear this song? Wow, did you hear what this artist did? So it's very unique. So take a moment. And I know that you could probably find a story for all of these, but if I made you choose one, go ahead and put it in the chat. Let's see if our origins have links.
So Religion, joy, religion, joy. Comfort, joy, religion. Joy, religion, comfort. Humanity, love. Family, fun.
Right. Right. You might not see something on that list.
I would add connection, being sung to as a child by my mother, love, comfort, etc. Religion, joy, family,
Excellent.
joy, joy.
So, one of the fun things you could do, an exercise for after this session, is you could take each one of these points, and if there's some other ones that you've thrown into the mix, what if you came up with 3 song selections that you felt like represented this point? You're like, let me think about friendship, songs my friends and I really loved together. Put those 3 songs under friendship. Under religion, these are the 3 songs I know if I sing that if I go to these 3 religious songs, it's going to fulfill this for me. Same with joy, same with comfort, same with love songs. This would become, right, just with this right here, 18 songs of a personal playlist for you that was deeply personal, deeply connected, so that when you access them and play them, they would do what you needed them to do. What do I mean by that? Regulate stress, express unexpressed emotion, take you where you need to go in a particular moment. If you're feeling too low and you need to raise it up, raise the spirit, raise your energy, raise your hopes, or maybe you're feeling anxious and agitated and everything's too high and you need some comfort, some grounding. This, I find this exercise and this list is just a great springboard for building a personal playlist for you, not for the one that you take care of. That's a different list. This is for you. So that's a fun thing that you can do after this session to build on. I encourage you to do that.
One more that came in was religion
Yes.
and comfort.
Religion, comfort.
Yep.
Excellent. And as we just resonate on why music is so important to us, this is just one other recommended book that I think is really interesting at looking at the effect that music has on the brain. Nina Kraus, neuroscientist and professor, and I love the way she articulates things about music. Draws on our sound mind's connection to how we move, think, sense, and feel. That it's a privileged connection between the sound mind and these vital brain functions, right? We understand this within ourselves. We'll understand this about the people we're working with. An untapped resource, arguably one of the best ways to foster cognitive strengths, attention, memory, creativity, and speech. So just an inspiring, insightful, very chock full way to think about this. And you know, caregivers, when they are stressed, and we see a lot of stressed caregivers in our groups and our programs, and that's what keeps me actually moving forward with this, because I see how great the need is. So what needs to happen is this return to self in these moments of isolation and frustration. This music, this transporting quality, right? People even talk about time travel that they do with music. And it can keep us moving forward despite feeling isolation. It can make us feel like we gather, right? Music is in all these special events of our lives, birthdays and funerals and military events and sporting events. There's always music because it has this great social tie. We've heard how vital it is for aging. for those with memory impairment. And, you know, as I went through the process of building this program from this nonprofit, really purely coming from the perspective of a musician and a performer, not a dementia care specialist, not a healthcare specialist, my own fresh eyes, I started to notice what these unique stresses were for, and I'm speaking now to both professional and family caregivers because I want us to really see that what we share, the common threads. I saw what was causing and contributing to burnout and retention issues and nursing shortages and all these things that we're seeing now. And this is why I am so passionate as executive director here of communicating to people the importance of this. You know, arts organizations and arts programs can get kind of relegated and pushed in a corner. Now is the time for art. Now is not the time for art. And that has to shift. That really has to shift. And I'm just going to briefly, you know, touch in on this because I think I want you to be aware, if you're a family caregiver or a professional, that our mission is really to look from family caregivers in the home all the way out into our shared community. And when I look at the statistics of, you know, 1 million additional direct care workers will be needed, more than any single occupation in the United States. And there's a lot of talk of wellness and a lot of talk of self-care. But here's the thing I noticed through my eyes as a performer was that we're asking family and professional caregivers to give this really personalized care. This is an arena that requires an immense amount of personalized care, but the training is not personalized. The training can be quite depersonalized, and yet we're asking for personalized care. So there's a disconnect there that I think the arts understands of how to really get that wellness, to stay in your caregiving role, to stay on the job, to provide that personalized care that is so needed in memory care and a lot of aspects of healthcare. So we have our eye on this, you know, as all of this affects family caregivers as well, because family caregivers may decide to bring a professional into the home. There's a lot of links and a lot of relationships. We need a robust, healthy community for both family and professionals. I want to share briefly, and we will get back to the music meditations, don't worry, but I wanted to share briefly about the pilot study because I want you to know that we have done some of the research and work, you know, even during COVID, we did this. So we did this during COVID at Deer's Head Hospital. What did we want to do? We wanted to look at the impact of creative engagement, as we've been discussing, on staff. They were nurses who worked with persons of dementia. See if we could increase the utilization of music for self-care as well as a tool with challenging behaviors that they experienced on the job, to see if we could decrease caregiver stress after the training and some period of utilization. And, you know, going in, 70% of the staff stated that it was the agitation and disruptive behavior that caused the greatest stress. I think family caregivers, I think there's a lot of link up when we have our groups and we have professional and family in there and they start to share what are the greatest challenges. There's a lot of commonalities in their responses. But outcome afterwards, you know, whereas going in 30% of staff were maybe trying some music, definitely not using music with themselves per se, but using it as a solution with disruptive behaviors. But post-study, when they had used it as self-care with themselves, they then started to want to implement it more with their patients with dementia in the workplace. So this was a great look at the connection between self-care and what you do on the job, self-care of caregiving, whether it's in the home or in a hospital like this. So these are just some of the things that we came out of, knowing that we want to go into more studies and more looking at the quality of life. I think that the last couple of bullet points are where we're moving into. Is could we reduce the utilization of psychotropic not meditations, good Freudian slip, to reduce those challenging behaviors? Because we're hearing from people on the job and we're hearing more talk of using different interventions, creative interventions, but we actually have to teach that. And we have to do that by impacting the quality of life of the caregiver and the workforce. And then that will come out and affect the care of the people, of the senior population or any individual being cared for. On our website, we have this poster for people that want to learn more about what we did. This is all on the storieslovemusic.org, so I won't spend too much time on it. What are we really looking for? What do I mean when I say that if you use creative engagement with someone, well, we are looking at improved quality of moments between you and the person you're taking care of. So it's not just that you're in a moment together, but the quality of the moment. Can you sustain the client or loved one's attention? Sustained, what we've seen. So if music generates these things we're talking about, timelessness and joy and room to breathe, the more that can be sustained, the better. That's when it can stimulate an arousal for life, to be loving, to be cooperative with receiving care. Because one of the greatest things we saw in the nursing unit of the hospital was not just the patient care, but the morale of the nurses unit on the job. And they told us that when they used their playlist and when they needed to cry, to release frustration, to lighten up and dance, to just connect with a different part of themselves that they don't operate from, this allowed them to look at the person that they were taking care of through different eyes, through fresh eyes. That doesn't come from a magic bean. We have to bring ourselves to a place that allows those fresh eyes to happen. So this is what we do in our program. These are some of the steps that we guide professional and family caregivers. We say, why are the songs that we choose for people that we're taking care of so important? Well, we just talked about your playlist, how that might be really important in the moment. It's important just as much for the person that you're taking care of. We talk about how the song is played. Where do we do these sessions? How do we prepare for it? We get caregivers to prepare to lead a music engagement session with their person, right? It takes understanding. What do we do as the music plays? What happens after the song? How do we listen? How do we make them, how do we prepare ourselves? We prepare with curiosity. And do you think that you could, as we did that day in the hurricane shelter, could you make the person you're caring for feel seen and heard and connected to? A lot of times in memory care, caregivers will tell us that they have not heard more than one word or a grunt or an emotional outburst, but no real verbal expression or connection during these creative engagement sessions. A new form of communication happens. And that's what we work with caregivers on, of how to recognize different forms of communication with people in memory impairment so that you can build on that and understand why they might be responding the way that they are. And we have so many beautiful stories, James and I, from our field work. And I want to share one in particular that I use a lot because I think it's a wonderful example of what does it mean to use a creative engagement session? What does that mean? Why does it land on someone with dementia? And how can it deal with the most challenging situations, and how it becomes miraculous to the caregivers we're working with? So I was doing training of a music engagement session with a man, this was in New York City, who was in his late 80s and in late stage Alzheimer's, along with his his home health aide. And we were working with music and songs that he loved in particular. And he happened to love Hebrew songs because when he was in an earlier stage of his life, he would go to temple and go to synagogue. And he was just not able to do that anymore. That was not possible for him to go and sing the Hebrew spiritual songs. So it became very important for me to communicate to his caregiver that keeping these songs, these Hebrew songs in his life, kept him connected to his spirit, to his soul. And there was a particular song about peace that he really loved, Shalom Alechem. And at one point during the music sessions, as often happened, he would have to take a break because he would have gone to the bathroom in his seat, and she would have to take him down the hallway, stop the session, lead him down the hall so that he could get changed and go back to the music session. And he would become enraged. He would get so angry. He felt infantilized, interrupted, so angry, in fact, that on that day that I was there, that she was leading him down the hallway, he raised his fist with so much anger as if he wanted to hit her. And my being there that day, I was able to look her in the eyes and say, you know that song that he loves about peace? Stop right now in the hallway. Stop where you're going. This transition is difficult. So sing with him. And she locked eyes with him, and she knew that song. She didn't know Hebrew. The song didn't mean what it meant to him, but she knew it because we had done it many times. She could just pull it out into her voice, no equipment needed. She didn't need to be a professional musician or a music therapist. She just needed to sing. And sing she did. And as she did, singing Shalom Alechem, his hand slowly came down, and what she saw in his eyes was that he was there with her in that moment. There with her again. He could stop being in the battle. He knew that she was there seeing him and what he was going through. So then he could relax, go down the hall and cooperate with the care that she wanted to provide. See, take that in for a minute. Inhale. Think about that story, what that means. Everyone, every caregiver, in memory care and caregiver, they ultimately want cooperation with care, right? But cooperation with care, especially in memory care, cannot come from a battle. It must come through connection and pleasure and joy and meaning. That is the revelation that the caregivers receive here, is that actually when you connect and you give meaning and you give joy through music or any other art modality, the cooperation you're looking for comes. It takes practice. It takes courage. It takes willingness to not go to maybe the old standbys, right? The battle, or you're just gonna watch television. I can't deal with you right now. I just can't deal with what you're putting to me. Just think about that for a moment. Pleasure leading to cooperation.
So there's a couple of comments to share. First, there was a shout out to your workforce slide. It was a perfect graphic. There's also people have to want to take time and do that. It has to be a heart thing. Powerful story, giving up the battle.
Indeed. And I will leave time for comments and questions as well. You know, people ask me, stories love music. They say, well, what's the story? Right? We're talking about music, but what's the story? Am I reading from a book? What am I making? Okay. The story, when I said that music is a doorway, not an end, think about when we were doing the music. When you hear music, stories start playing in your head. There is a story in every song and music in most of your stories. So after a song plays, caregivers may notice that in the patient or loved one's present has shifted in a response to the song, The song brings up emotions and memories. And in a nonlinear way, we can ask them about those feelings and themes, not as a traditional conversation, but an exchange that just allows verbal engagement that sometimes is possible with people with dementia, even when they have not been speaking a lot. We saw that a lot in our field work. People who were not speaking, not only singing, but then after the songs, sharing stories. I can recall being in Brooklyn in a session, and after we finished a song, a woman with dementia said, that song reminds me of the time I took my dog on a trip to Africa. And we said, oh my, that's interesting. It wasn't a test. It wasn't something with linear results. So I didn't say, did you really take your dog on a trip to Africa? I said, wow, that's interesting. I'd love to hear more about your dog and the trip to Africa. Because when we just allow the story, the poetry to come out, that's love. That's paying attention and seeing someone. It's not a test with results. So, and as this poster shows on here, a lot of stuff comes out. We're not looking just for happiness. We're not looking for forced gaiety from people when we do these sessions. We're looking for them to just release what they need to release in the same way your music meditations will allow you to release what you release. You both need this. So verbal prompting is the story in this program. After completing the program, caregivers feel stress lowering. They also feel the joy that creative engagement provides will have a significant positive impact on the quality of their caregiving. It gives them the feeling that they can look at their caregiving with fresh eyes. It gives them that personalized training that allows them to stay in the work, stay with it. Like someone said in that comment, sticking with it, with your heart. At the end of the day, these music engagement sessions, this list right here, which came from my mentor, dementia care trainer Nancy Henley from Alzheimer's Association, Caring Kind, she said, at the end of the day, your music engagement sessions are reinforcing these communication keys: being in agreement, be encouraging, listening deeply, making eye contact, mirroring, and making the brain and the person a better offer instead of a battle. These are deeply inside these music engagement sessions. We integrate, we teach caregivers how to bring all of these communication keys into the music. So that's what we really, guide them into. Yes, this is just the poster of when we evaluated all the caregivers that have taken our programs. And we were just so, delighted. You put a lot into a program, and but then really the most important thing is, how is that program received? And when we went through all of our pre and post evaluations, the fact that people felt like that they could really help lower their own stress with this, and that it was very much going to have an impact, a positive impact on the quality of their caregiving, that was it for me. That made me feel satisfied as in terms of the understanding of what the mission of this is. Lowering caregiver stress and improving the quality of their caregiving. That's a lot. It's not easier said than done, but that's why we've created this program, to understand the power of these creative tools. Okay. Oh, perfect timing. So our final music meditation today, before we'll allow some community conversation and Q&A, this song, this title, when James and I would go into music sessions at memory units, people always laughed when we said, okay, everybody, this is the time we're going to do our song, Hang On Little Tomato. I mean, people with dementia would laugh, the caregivers would laugh. And we were like, I wonder why this is so amusing. I mean, it's a cute title. But I was like, oh, I get it. It's like we're all the little tomatoes. We're the tomatoes hanging on to the vine there. And if you think about that, there's a vulnerability, right? We're vulnerable human beings who happen to be caregivers, care professionals, and tomatoes, like most produce and things on the vine and plants, they need sun and they need light and they need nourishment and they need to stay on the vine long enough, right? We pluck them off too fast. We manipulate ourselves. That's not good if we don't take care of ourselves, right? We fall off the vine there. So this song is about that vulnerability, about tending to ourselves, like someone mentioned the garden. So for this, our final music meditation, I want you to put aside your thinking mind, your brain, your notes, your thoughts, your plans, your goals. Those will be there for you to pick up afterwards. Get comfortable in your seat. Make this your deepest music meditation today. If you're okay closing your eyes, let yourself do that. Let your body release with every breath and just notice and allow whatever this song brings up. Just allow yourself to go wherever it wants to take you. Sun has left and forgotten me. It's dark, I cannot see. Why does this rain pour down? I'm gonna drown in a sea of deep confusion. Somebody told me, I don't know who. Whenever you are sad and blue, and you're feeling all alone and left behind, just take a look inside you and you'll find you've got to hold on through the night. Hang on, soon you'll be all right. And if it starts to cry, just look up to the sky, 'cause something's coming up ahead to turn your tears to dew instead. Hold on through the night. Hang on, soon you'll be alright. Even when it's dark and not a bit of sun, sing some sunshine from above, spreading rays of sunny love. And if you hold on to this advice, when change is hard and not so nice, if you listen to your heart the whole night through, your sunny someday will come one day soon to you. Inhale and exhale. How did you see yourself as that little tomato? What does that look like? Maybe even take a hand to your own cheek right now. Just feeling your body, feeling yourself, your presence. You're a human being with this body and this spirit in this life, not just a caregiver, a person who's vulnerable and has a fragility. So just notice what it felt like to allow yourself to feel maybe small or vulnerable, or just maybe you thought about how you need to tend to yourself. What does it take to be tended to grow and nourish, right? Someone said, if I had room to breathe, I'd grow. We have been so inspired working with caregivers. I love having a program serving caregivers and saying to them, as they've said to me, when you go into these creative sessions, what are they going to teach me today? What am I going to be surprised by? What wisdom will I reap from those with memory impairment? What miraculous moments and occurrences from music and the sharing music are going to bring to us today? As that's truly the great message of Stories Love Music's program. So just take a nice inhale and exhale, thanking yourself for being here today and taking the time to value this. And we want to just leave time today for you here to either share, your perspective of where you're at and what creative engagement sounds like to you, or if there's questions that you have and thoughts. We just want to make sure we leave time for that.
So a couple of things that have come in the chat since this last lovely meditation is felt all is going to be okay, don't worry. Felt like I was dancing in the rain with that last beautiful song.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the music and the breathing exercises really help me to realize and relax. Or to relax, not realize. Felt drowsy. I will share that since I have the privilege of being able to moderate this event, I love it that I can just sort of make some gaps and still feel welcomed and appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, any just, maybe your own experience, what has been your own experience with creative engagement? And if there's any thoughts or questions about what that really means.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. Will you share the slides?
Definitely.
And have you seen how music connects with children who have experienced trauma?
It's interesting that you asked that. People will often ask us if the joy of creative engagement is applicable for caregivers in other communities, right? Not just individuals with dementia, Alzheimer's, not just senior citizens. And obviously, because we're dealing with very universal tools of music, right? And storytelling and love, of course, that transcends just this looking at this one group or this one issue. And we had an organization reach out to us that of caregivers of children with autism, different neurodivergent situations. And absolutely, when we talked with them about music engagement and creative engagement, the trauma that they were experiencing, having that condition in life, what that made them feel in their body, or their frustrations at not being able to communicate with people in their life. So trauma across the board, trauma for caregivers across the board, trauma. We're proud to consider Stories Love Music really a part of the neuro arts community, that Johns Hopkins has been spearheading. We've even done some workshops for Johns Hopkins. And why am I proud of that? Because I think that way beyond just Alzheimer's, any neurodegenerative disease or any health situation that is traumatic, mental health included, that is traumatic, that stays in the body and stays in the emotions, creative engagement is applicable to that. And at some point, we may even widen out our scope of where we'll deliver this program. Our website has a lot of information, and no one's, if you don't have questions, that's great. That makes me feel as if we were clear and we did our job. But the website has a lot more information. If after today you're like, oh, I wonder, and questions pop into the mind, Our website has a lot of information on what this work is all about. There's resource pages and lots of fun stuff. And you can always reach out and send us messages about what this program, how could I have this program for a group of caregivers, or maybe I want to become a certified trainer and work with other caregivers. On the right-hand side of this slide, it shows what some of the modules in this program. So we go way more in depth in caring for the caregiver, and then also way more in depth in terms of managing the challenging behaviors. And then we also have a train the trainer guide.
Teresa has just placed information again too in the chat about the website and your background.
Excellent. But yeah, any comments or thoughts, anything that, popped in, it doesn't even have to be a question. It can just be comment.
Thank you, Ilyana and James, for showing us how to use music as a tool for self-care. I encourage everyone to make your playlist for when you need a little comfort and encouragement. Very helpful and creative information for our new journey that is beginning. Encourages me to learn more about caregiving for family member and self.
Thank you.
Thank you for this timely message. You are wonderful. Deeply moved. I am deeply moved. Very relaxing for me. Thanks. You are wonderful. In recent months, music has become so important for me. Thank you. Great, helpful presentation. This gives me evidence why.
Mm.
The playlist exercise for myself is a terrific idea. I know it will be helpful.
And I want to just give one little more try at home exercise for you all, maybe even to try tonight. Caregivers will often say, if I say to them, please try to do one music meditation a day for yourself, like just even if it's one song, but that one song always turns into 3 because people are having such a great time. They're like, when do I do this? And I'm like, all right, here's some ideas. Maybe you get up a few minutes earlier in the morning and you pull out one of those songs from your playlist on your phone and you do your music meditation first thing when you get up in the morning. Maybe you go to bed a little bit earlier and do your music meditation as you're getting ready for bed. A lot of times people do it in their car. A lot of caregivers will tell me that they will do their music meditation in the car because it's a quiet space in a transitional moment. So wherever you can do it. If you're at work, professional caregivers will sometimes jump into a linen closet or they'll go take a walk outside in the parking lot. But try at least one music meditation a day.
So a couple more comments. Thank you. Your last song was very relaxing. Thank you for this opportunity and thank you for what you do. Question, would you perform this at a religious event if invited?
Sure.
When you say do this presentation, is that what you mean? Like the
Yeah,
presentation we did today?
It says, question, would you perform this at a religious event if invited?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would be happy to talk with you further about that. Send me a message. Places of faith and worship, those are communities that have a lot of caregivers in them. So I'm always open to hear what you have in mind.
And another comment, this has been so special and a reminder that music is so important for self-care. And then you got a message that says, thank you, I will contact you. So, or connect with you.
Yeah, that goes for anyone. If any of you are connected to different groups, different organizations, be they family or professionals, you can reach out on the website. We don't have the capacity to just do one-on-one training. We work with groups. So, generally around like an average of, if we have about minimum of 8 to 10 people in a group, and usually around a maximum of 20 to 25 in a group, to do the actual full Joy of Creative Engagement program.
And I think you do both, as we know, virtually, like today, or you do in person,
We
right?
do. Yes, we do both.
And just a note for everybody, Teresa has put in the chat, your feedback is important, and there is a list there. We really do want to hear your feedback, so that the commission can make sure that they are addressing the needs of family caregivers and how it could, other activities can benefit family caregivers. So please do take a few minutes to provide that feedback. It's really important. And again, that link is in the chat as well.
Well, yeah, I want to say before I say my thank yous, also, if you want to hear just about news with Stories of Music, just join our newsletter list, because we will also put out there when there are CEU opportunities for anyone that needs CEUs. So there's a lot of different actually things coming down the pike. So stay connected. I would like to just, if there's no more questions or comments, I would like to thank the hosts and partners and MCs and all of you wonderful people from the Commission of Caregiving and AARP Maryland for the invitation. I think this was, as you all said, beautiful timing. We're fresh off of doing the Creative Engagement Symposium in Ocean City, which happened in October, that Teresa was at. But certainly in this post-election stressful time, it's just a time to connect. And I'm glad we did it in such a lovely way.
Then I just want to say a big thank you for being able to participate to the Maryland Commission on Caregiving. Knowing what an amazing group you are. And I hope that we use this opportunity to hear from more of family caregivers that have attended today as to what their needs are. Thank you so much, everyone.